Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining this session. My name is Barbara Ryan, and I'm director of the Group on Earth Observations in Geneva, Switzerland. And we are delighted to be here this afternoon to talk about the status of Earth observations in the Arctic. And if you were here for this morning's session on climate change, this session and that are a really nice bookend for the role of Earth observations in the Arctic. I guess just in terms of maybe setting the context a little bit, when we talk about Earth observations in the Arctic, I want to be real clear. It's space-based observations, it's atmospheric observations, it's marine observations, it's terrestrial observations. And so we're really talking about integrating across all those platforms and systems to design. We happen in the Group on Earth Observations to call it GEOS, a Global Earth Observation System of Systems. But I think what this whole conference has been about is actually designing an Arctic observation system of observations, or a system of systems observations. And it's just so important to integrate across those platforms that you see here and across many of the areas that ultimately will benefit society. And so I think a slide like this, while quite busy, really talks about those Earth observation needs and the requirements not only here in the Arctic, but for all of those areas that benefit society. And there are some specific challenges. They've come up over the last couple days, but this slide, I think, does a good job of showing at least one of the challenges that exist in the Arctic, and that is the relative paucity or the sparsity of observations here. And so whether it's just looking at a surface pressure data bank in that one slide or the Argo floats here, look at the relative density of the network globally to the density that exists in the Arctic. And it's much less sparse, more sparse, I guess we'll say, more sparse. And that's just one of the challenges that we have in this part of the world. And we can go through a host of issues on why that exists. And that's really what this next panel is going to be about. So we've got just a number of institutions and organizations that are represented as shown on this slide. And we've got a number of really talented people that will come together and talk about it. Paul Berkman, Fletcher School, will really present maybe a systems and infrastructure perspective that will set the stage for the next couple speakers. Jouni Pulliainen from the Finnish Meteorological Institute will talk about the atmospheric domain. Henning Vedie from the Institute of Marine Research will talk about oceanic observations. Tom Berry from CAF will talk about flora and fauna. And then Larry Hinsman will clean up University of Alaska Fairbanks and SAON to really talk about some existing structures that would help integrate across these platforms, across these disciplines. What you won't see here is sea ice and glaciers, because we think you got a really nice presentation on Friday of this week at the Switzerland event where Connie Steffen came in and talked about glaciers and that. So we don't want to forget that, but we think you got that information earlier in the week. I guess maybe in the last minute or two that I have for setting the stage for this panel, I really would like to go back to the Arctic Science Ministerial Summit, because again, the briefing that you got earlier in the week showed that goal or objective number 2 was really about strengthening and integrating Arctic observations and data sharing. And so I hope also as a part of this panel, you'll hear the importance of broad open data policies. So sustained Arctic observations across platforms, across domains, and the importance of broad open data sharing is just essential for that. So without further ado, Paul, I'm gonna turn it over to you.